Before I start today's video, I wanted to give a huge shout out to Adam at Surfboard Agency. Now, Surfboard Agency is a distribution company that distributes for several brands, and one of which is the Aloha Surfboard. But the one I'm going to start with today is the Black Panda. Now, the Black Panda comes in what they call the Ecoskin. I believe they have other options, but the Ecoskin looks like almost like Firewire's old Timber Tech. Now, much like my old Twice Baked, this board is in the same category of what I would consider an Uber Groveler. It has a very wide nose, as well as the volume and wide point is pushed forward a bit. And then it keeps a very wide tail, and the width of this board makes it super plainy. Now, the version I'm testing is the 5.4, and it's 21 3/8 inches wide and 2 3/8 inches thick. So it's not that thick, but it is very wide, and it comes in at 32 liters and has 5 fin boxes, so you could ride it as a thruster, 2+1, or a quad. So now Aloha Surfboards has been around since 1978, and ironically I used to think it was a Hawaiian board, but it is a Australian surfboard. Now, the shaper for Aloha is Greg Clough. Now, he's been around a while, so you know that his designs are truly vetted and tested. As mentioned, this is an Uber Groveler, and the type of waves you want to surf it in are going to be small, weak, soft. That's where this thing excels. Here on day one, I'm actually riding it as a quad with the rusty fins that you saw earlier. This board got into waves super easy. Now, that had to do with two specific reasons. One, the width of the board makes it plane very easily. Right? You don't need a lot of energy from the wave to actually get going. The second reason is because it's 32 liters. For my weight at 145, 32 is in the Uber Groveler range. To give you an idea, I surf the Seaside at 28 liters, my Mashup at 27 liters, and my performance board's about 25 liters. Now, although I don't like making direct comparisons, I found this board to be super familiar. Very similar to my Twice Baked. Now, my Twice Baked is 5.3 and 31 liters. This one is 5.4 and 32 liters. So this one's a little bit bigger. The tail on the Twice Baked is a little bit more pulled in, so as the waves get a little bit bigger, it's a little easier to control. Width on this tail of the Aloha board, the Black Panda, is wide for the reason of groveling. I mean, its specific purpose is to get you into waves that are shin high to waist high, and I know I'll get comments, why would you even surf those conditions? At the end of the day, I'm a weekend warrior, so you know, beggars can't be choosers, right? I just take what I can get. And in terms of groveling, because this board is a little bit taller, a little bit wider, and a little bit more volume, it does grovel a little bit better than the Twice Baked. So now here's something that you should consider. Now, I try to help some friends by telling them they should surf more volume. But I think what they hear is, oh, surf a bigger board, which is something like a mid-length or a long board or whatever. But you don't necessarily have to go longer to get a bigger board, right? There's also width and thickness. So if you are struggling to catch small waves on a smaller board, something like the Black Panda or any Uber Groveler, right? Boards that are over 20.5 inches wide, somewhere between 20.5 and 21.5 inches wide, is ideal for groveling. Anyways, I always tell people you should have an Uber Groveler in your quiver. It'll make those terrible days at least enjoyable. So now day two will totally highlight how well this thing does in mushy conditions. This is super high tide, and on the outside, this is Huntington, and it I don't know if you guys are familiar with Huntington, but it basically breaks on the outside when it's bigger, and then there's this huge lully section that if you have the right board, you can actually make the section. So again, turns terrible days or terrible conditions into enjoyable ones. So now the board is surprisingly easy to turn. Now, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that because it's so wide, in slow conditions, it's still planing very well, and I'm able to still maneuver it. Also, I think that little notch in the tail that kind of brings the very rear end of the board to a narrower point. It just makes it, I think you pivot on that. And look how soft this wave is. And here we'll try something a little bit different. I'm going to give you a POV view along with the beach view. And sorry if the sync isn't perfect. It was just so much work. I got lazy. This will also illustrate how soft these waves are. And on the inside, they get a little bit steeper, and the board does very well to adjust from planing on soft waves to being on rail on a slightly steeper wave. But I think speed is going to be the factor. If you have too much speed, a width of a board could hinder your ability to control it. But obviously in these small conditions, not a factor. So now one thing I wanted to do was mention that the Ecoskin of the Black Panda isn't as durable as the Firewire TimberTech. Now, I know this because after surfing this a while, it's got a very slight pressure. I believe it is more durable than PU and typical epoxy, but I'm just comparing it directly to the TimberTech on account of both have that wood laminate design. This one actually feels more like a PU surfboard or an epoxy surfboard, whereas the TimberTech, it felt very planky to me. It didn't have as much flex as I would have wanted. But don't get me wrong, that one surfed pretty good as well. I think in a nutshell, this board does exactly what it's intended to do, and I found it to be enjoyable. Turned really crappy days into good ones. So now this is day 3. I've actually had a few more days on it, but I don't have it on film. So this is the 3rd day I have video. And it is a little bit bigger, but still soft. And so you'll get an idea of how this will perform with a little bit more speed. So the last thing I wanted to mention is the value. This board, the Black Panda, is probably very well suited for someone on a tight budget. So now if you don't have a lot of money to spend on a surfboard, this is a good option. The other option would be to buy used. I think I'm just going to end it here at this point. I have about 3 more minutes of footage on day 3, but I'll just put some music to it and you can watch if you want. At any rate, thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe, and although I can't get my hands on all boards, in fact, I have a hard time getting hands on any boards because I'm on such a tight budget, and the channel doesn't generate a lot of revenue. In fact, all the money I've ever made on this channel has gone towards solo shots, so the camera gear that allows me to even film. Oh, this one last thing I wanted to show you is look at the distance that I cover to catch up to my friend. So he went because I was so deep and he didn't think I was going to make it, but that goes to show you, having that planing speed of a board like that, I can just make it through flat sections. Thanks for watching. Until the next one.